Bonjour, Rog fans, and today I'm Rog ranting about Freeman on the land. What is this? Well, when the Rog did a lovely video, first of a two-parter, about the UK 2021 census and his concerns about its validity and its true purpose, somebody commented, which is very nice of them, that they quite liked it up until the bit where I mentioned the word joinder. And then they said, I don't have any time for this Freeman of the land BS, or something along those lines. Still a comment that was well worth reading, and it was gratefully received. It's an opinion, I don't have a problem with that. But Roger don't know what he's talking about, because where the Roger learns about these terms like joinder and all this sort of jazz was talking to people who work in the legal profession and reading books like this exciting term. That's where the Roger gets his information from. I don't watch stare at YouTube and just believe it because somebody's talking and they're getting ads, and they've got ads all the time, so they're getting money for it. No, Roger researches, reads books, asks questions, talks to people who work in these areas, and that's where I learned it. And I still don't understand what the point of it is, because what they say is, the legal people say is, well, you've got there's two people. They say there's you, that's the signature, and that's affected by common law. So if you go and punch somebody in the face or you break into somebody's house, police come and nab you. That's a common law offence. That's it. And then there's you in capitals, which is a different entity, and that person, they pay all the taxes. And so if you don't pay a back loan, that's the one who gets sent to prison. And joinder is you linking you, the physical person, with this other person who's an entity for paying taxes. I don't know what the point of that is. It doesn't make any sense to me, but that's the way it works. So I was quite interested. What is this Freeman nonsense? So I went and had a look and thought, is it nonsense or is it interesting? Is this something we should all be knowing about? Should we even be going as far as telling our children about this? Should they be teaching us in schools? So Roger went and did a bit of the old research, and I thought YouTube's given me the ideal place to find these sort of people, and there was loads of them. And what it seems to be is that these people, they get a little bit of knowledge about how things work, and then they go off the tangent like 17th century noblemen who feel offended. No, sir, I think you will find you are incorrect, because the law clearly says that is not possible for you to do, because I have read it and I understand. Well, what, of course, they obviously, these people don't realise is that the vast majority of people who enforce any sort of commercial law haven't got a clue about this. They don't know anything about it. They know nothing at all. And they're always waffling on about the Magna Carta, and the Roger don't really know what that is. Roger never taught that at school. All he was taught about the Magna Carta was that where it was signed, which was at the bottom, and what time it was signed, which is around lunchtime, 12:15. He didn't know anything else. So the Roger is actually going to go and read it. And what I'm going to do, if I can discover how to do it, because it's all technical, it seems, is put a link in the description to it, so you people can read it and see what on earth you think it is. Is it relevant? But it's allegedly the document that is the basis for our democracy, or democracy, depending how you want to see it. So if it is, and it's like the American Constitution, and it determines the rights of the people, that could be interesting. I know somebody was waffling on about Section 63, I think it was, which allegedly says that all taxes are voluntary. Well, the Roger likes that. The first thing the Roger would do is say, I'm not paying income tax. You can jog on. Because income tax was a temporary tax invented in the 70s. I don't know which government it was. And it only lasts for 1 year, and every year they vote it back in. Well, with the government putting loads of people on suspension with partial pay, even though they made no offence whatsoever, and they can still afford to give themselves pay rises and increase the civil service pay rises and increase civil service stakeholder pensions and their own, there's clearly enough money and don't need it. So I'd say, no, I'm not paying it. I'm not saying not paying income tax, I'm not paying council tax, because they're two scams. Paying national insurance, because apparently that goes towards what's left of the NHS, which has been beautifully destroyed by 15, 20 years of government. But I like that idea of it going to services that actually mean something, rather than going to people's back pockets. Or going to help the poor. That'd be lovely. How's the house homeless? I have no problem with that. But income tax, no, you can stick it. Council tax is a scam. What the council's done for us? All they do is empty the bins. If you've got a problem, they don't give it to us. I mean, they spent the whole of last year being at full pay, staying at home on our money. Like, jog on. They should be funded directly from central government. That's what they should have. But anyway, it's not important. Freeman Alliance. Anyway, so they get on this thing. And I found this brilliant video with this bloke. And he decided he was going to unregister his car. He got to register his car, so it was his own car. So he had his own number plate on it, and he'd get all this paperwork in his car, big part, about that much, big part of it, with the Magna Carta in it and loads of stuff from the DVLA. So I have unregistered this car. Anyway, he goes pootling off down the motorway, doesn't he? And of course the Rozzers stop him, don't they? Or if you're listening outside of the UK, the police. And I don't mean Sting, the police. And they pull him over and they say, "Oh, you sir, your car isn't registered with the DVLA." And he said, have you got a licence and an insurance? And he says no. He says, "No, I don't." He says, "No." He says, this is my private conveyance." He says, "This is my private conveyance. It's not a motor vehicle. Yeah, not a motor vehicle." And he goes on and he starts quoting, "Because the law says according to this and the Magna Carta, da 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 da." And the police officer hasn't got absolute no idea what he's talking about, because they don't know. Most solicitors don't know either. They don't know this stuff. And that makes these people think as though somehow they're in charge, they're in control, that they've got power over the system because they understand something, or they've misinterpreted something and think they understand it. And the people are talking to them, they're talking about, which is not going to be a convincing argument, is it? Anyhow, what this bloke didn't ask was the number one obvious question I would ask, having known people who've become police officers, that when they become police officers and they pass the test at Hendon, they have to swear an oath, which ironically is to the Queen personally, not to the people, which is a bit odd. But that's a different video. I must remember to write that on now. That could be an interesting one. But they also swear to uphold common law. Now, common law, as we've briefly whittled on about before, is anything to do with society things, really, like stealing, vandalism, assault, even things such as antisocial behaviour. That's all sort of common law. It's what commonly isn't acceptable in society, I suppose, is what it's saying. It's not commercial law, it's not to do with taxes, it's to do with people. It's a people thing, isn't it? It's like a social law, isn't it? And so I would have asked the question of the police officer who stopped this guy because he hasn't got tax, primarily. "Officer, are you under oath?" Because if he's operating under oath, police are only trained to uphold common law. I've talked to police officers and to traffic police officers. They're only trained to uphold common law. That, if you haven't got tax on your car, that's corporate law. That's commercial law. Yeah, that's what that is. It's not common law. It's this stuff. Yeah, you're not going to kill somebody if your car isn't taxed. If your car hasn't got an MOT, you possibly could. That's acceptable. But if it's not taxed, that's a commercial offence. The police have no power in commercial offences. So this is rather interesting. I'd have asked that question. And because he was filming everything, that would have been a great piece of evidence in court. Well, I said, "Oh, my lord, well, I accept your opinion that you say I haven't got tax," but the police officer was working outside of his jurisdiction. He was trying to apply commercial law when he was operating under oath, so he could only apply common law. And under common law, how is driving your car going to be an offence? Well, it probably could, because you ain't got an MOT, because you probably haven't got an MOT, and you probably couldn't get an MOT because it was unlicensed. So that probably would make sense. But anyway, so he's giving it all this jazz and this Magna Carta stuff, and he won't get out of his car because he says, "I'm not getting out of my car because that's me giving you power. That's saying that you're in charge of the situation. You're not in charge of the situation," which of course, that isn't what the police do it for. The police aren't going, "I'm going to get this sucker to get out of the car because I can nail him with the lure." No, they want you to get out of the car because they want to see you're not a threat. That's why you're supposed to get out of the car, to say you're not a threat, or turn the engine off and put the keys on the dash so you're not a threat, because they're trained to expect everybody to be a violent nutter. Makes sense. If you're dealing with violent nutters, obviously. So he goes through all this stuff. Anyway, eventually they tow his car away and they crush it, which of course they will do. But what was quite funny was that, like all these people, it seems, that I found so far, there seems very few of them really understand what they're talking about and can really articulate it to those in authority or those in assumed authority regarding that they're incorrect and that these people are right. The ones who understand it anyway, most of them haven't seem to have a damn clue. Well, this bloke made two fundamental errors. One, he didn't ask the officer if he was operating under oath, because he would have had him, because he said, well, that's common law, mate, jog on. And number two, he didn't actually research enough about what the Ministry of Transport is, or the Department of Transport, whatever they want to call themselves. The Department of Transport is a registered business. Yep. So driving on a road that is owned and maintained by the Ministry of Transport is a commercial act. It is an act of commercial law. So you need licenses. It's commercial law. So you need licenses and that sort of stuff. You need licenses and taxes and all sort of stuff in order to do it. Same with a business. You're licensed to trade as a business. It's a commercial act. Driving is a commercial act. If you're going on the so-called public roads, which are owned by a business, the Department of Transport. And the Department of Transport, according to their own website, own 3 metres of land from the road surface and all the way down the bottom. So with him driving an unregistered car on commercial property, he was actually breaking the rules that business states are the minimum requirements for using its roads with any kind of vehicle with a motor in it. I mean, unbelievable. So in answer to the question, to the comment, I don't believe this Freeman of the land stuff nonsense. I'm not convinced he's actually worth doing either, because it seems as though because the people they're dealing with don't know what they're talking about. That they could be an expert on the law to a level that is simply spectacular, but the police don't really understand it. Most magistrates don't understand it. You're wasting your time. You have to somehow fight your way, which is expensive, all the way to sort of a high level of court when you're dealing with judges who really do understand, and they're likely to evade it anyway. So what's the point in that? But what Roger's going to do? He's going to go and read the Magna Carta and see if this thing is any good, and see if I can find a copy on the internet from a legitimate source. I don't know if the UK government have got one or something. Then I'll put a link in the description if I can discover how to do it. But in the meantime, I'll be very interested to know what you people think about this Freeman thing. Is it really pointless? Or have any of you actually got success from it? It'd be really interesting. And as usual, don't forget, this isn't YouTube. It isn't in reality. It's something quite bizarre. No, but it isn't. It isn't reality. It's only YouTube.